Admiral Marcus Reed stood in the center of the massive Galactic Council chamber, his hands clasped behind his back as hundreds of alien representatives watched him with growing concern. The enormous holographic display floating above the assembly showed empty space where the most feared military force in the galaxy had been just 2 days ago. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Reed cleared his throat and began speaking, his voice carrying clearly through the advanced sound systems. To every corner of the vast room, "Honored council members, I stand before you today to report an incident that challenges everything we understand about interstellar warfare and military capability." The Admiral gestured toward the holographic display, which began showing the last recorded positions of the Draconian fleet. Red dots marked each vessel, creating a formation that had been moving steadily toward the Sol system with obvious hostile intent. The dots were arranged in the classic Draconian attack pattern that had conquered 17 worlds in the past decade, 48 hours ago. "Our long-range sensors tracked the complete Draconian armada as it approached the Sol system," Reed continued, his weathered face showing the strain of the past 2 days. 212 warships, including their flagship dreadnought, Tyrannos, were maintaining standard attack formation and broadcasting their usual conquest demands to the human homeworld. A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. The Draconians were known throughout the galaxy for their brutal efficiency and overwhelming firepower. Their armada had never been defeated in open combat, and their reputation for destroying entire civilizations was well documented in Galactic. Military records got Counselor Vextari of the Hegemony raised her hand, her blue skin growing noticeably, paler as she processed the implications. "Admiral Reed, are you suggesting that the human defense forces somehow managed to engage and defeat the entire Draconian fleet? Their technology level is barely adequate for local system defense." Reed shook his head slowly, his expression becoming even more troubled. "That's exactly what makes this situation so unprecedented, Counselor. The humans never engaged the Draconian fleet in battle. According to our monitoring stations, there were no energy weapon discharges, no missile launches, no defensive actions taken by Earth's forces whatsoever." The chamber erupted in confused chatter as delegates turned to each other, speaking in dozens of different languages and communication methods. The idea that the galaxy's most feared military force could simply disappear without engaging in combat was beyond their understanding. "Then what happened to them?" demanded Counselor Zephyr from the Outer Rim territories, his mechanical voice translator adding an eerie quality to his words. "Draconian fleets don't retreat, they don't withdraw. They conquer worlds or die in. The attempt? This has been their way for over 3 centuries. Reed manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on the outer edges of the Sol system where the Draconian fleet had last been detected. The final transmission from the Tyrannos came at exactly 1400 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Their communications officer reported detecting unusual energy signatures from Earth's moon, but described them as minor geological activity that posed no threat to their mission. The display showed the exact moment when the red dots representing the Draconian fleet began to fade from the tracking systems. One by one, starting with the outer escort vessels and moving inward toward the flagship. Each ship simply vanished from all sensor networks simultaneously. "No distress signals," Reed emphasized, his voice growing quieter as the implications sank in. "No emergency transmissions, no weapon signatures, no debris fields, no energy discharges of any kind. The most powerful military force in known space simply ceased to exist in the span of 17 minutes. Dr. Kellen of the Science Directorate stood up from his seat, his 6 arms gesturing frantically as he tried to process the information. "This violates every principle of physics and warfare we understand. Matter cannot simply disappear without leaving some trace. Even if every ship was somehow vaporized instantly, there would be energy readings. Radiation signatures, something to indicate what occurred." Reed nodded grimly. "Our deep space monitoring stations have been conducting continuous scans of the area for the past 48 hours. We've deployed our most advanced sensor arrays and detection equipment. The results are consistent across all platforms and technologies. There is no evidence that the Draconian fleet ever existed in that region of space." The chamber fell silent again, as the full weight of the situation became clear to everyone present. If a force capable of making the Draconian armada disappear without a trace existed in the Sol system, it represented a threat unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. Counselor Vextari leaned forward in her seat, her voice trembling slightly. What do we know about Earth's current military capabilities? Could they have developed some kind of weapon technology that our intelligence networks failed to detect? According to our most recent assessments, Reed replied. Accessing another section of the holographic display, Earth possesses approximately 47 orbital defense platforms, each equipped with basic kinetic weapons and primitive energy shields. Their space fleet consists of 12 destroyers and 3 heavy cruisers, all using technology that is at least 50 years behind current galactic standards. The display showed detailed schematics of Earth's known military assets, highlighting their limited range and firepower. Even combined, the entire human defense force would have been unable to seriously challenge a single Draconian heavy cruiser, let alone their entire armada. Their most advanced weapon systems are nuclear missiles with conventional guidance systems, Reed continued. Effective against planetary targets, but completely useless against shielded starships. Based on every analysis we've conducted, Earth should have fallen to the Draconian assault within hours of their arrival. Ambassador Thyron of the Central World stood up, his tall frame casting a shadow across several nearby delegates. Anyone attempted to contact the human government directly? Perhaps they witnessed something that our long-range sensors missed. Reed's expression became even more puzzling. We've been in continuous communication with Earth's leadership since the incident occurred. Their response has been ... unexpected. They claim to be as surprised as we are by the Draconian fleet's disappearance. They've offered complete cooperation with any investigation we wish to conduct. That seems reasonable, commented another. Delegate. What's unexpected about their cooperation? Reed paused for a moment, his eyes scanning the assembled crowd before answering. They're not afraid. Civilization that should have been facing complete annihilation 48 hours ago is showing no signs of fear, panic, or even concern about the implications of this event. Their representatives have been helpful, accommodating, and remarkably calm throughout our communications. The subtle implication hung in the air like a toxic cloud. A primitive civilization that remained calm in the face of such impossible circumstances was either completely naive about the danger they had faced, or they knew something that the rest of the galaxy did not. As the debate continued among the council members, none of them noticed the way Admiral Reed's eyes seemed to reflect the chamber's lighting differently than they should have. None of them saw the slight smile that played at the corners of his mouth when he thought no one was watching, and none of them realized that the weathered human standing before them was no longer entirely human at all. The investigation was about to begin. But the truth was far more terrifying than anyone in that chamber could possibly imagine. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge of his vessel as the massive joint investigation fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Dozens of ships from various galactic civilizations had answered the Council's call to help solve the mystery of the vanished Draconian armada. Walker's own ship served as the coordination center for the entire operation, and he moved among the alien investigators with practiced ease. Commander Theses of the Dominion emerged from his transport shuttle, his tall blue frame imposing even among the diverse group of investigators. His species was known for their analytical minds and advanced detection technology, making him the natural choice to lead this unprecedented investigation. As he stepped aboard Walker's ship, the human captain greeted him with a warm smile and firm handshake. Commander Theses, welcome aboard, Walker said, his voice carrying genuine enthusiasm. I hope your journey wasn't too difficult. We've been preparing for your arrival since we received word from the Council. Theses studied the human carefully, noting the relaxed posture and friendly demeanor. Captain Walker, I must admit I'm surprised by your reaction to this situation. The Draconian fleet was approaching your homeworld with obvious hostile intent. Most civilizations would still be in a state of panic. Walker chuckled softly, a sound that seemed oddly out of place given the circumstances. Well, Commander, humans have always been adaptable. We tend to focus on solving problems rather than dwelling on what might have happened. Besides, the Draconians are gone now, so there's no point in worrying about something that didn't occur. Dr. Lisa Thompson appeared at Walker's side, carrying several data tablets and wearing the same inexplicably calm expression that seemed common among all the humans they had encountered. She was introduced as Earth's chief xenobiologist and the primary liaison for scientific cooperation during the investigation. "Commander Thizis," she said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture, "we've compiled all of our sensor data from the past week for your review. Our early warning systems tracked the Draconian approach just as your reports indicated. But then the signals simply vanished from our instruments." Thompson handed over the data tablets, each one containing terabytes of information about ship movements, energy readings, and communication intercepts from the time period in question. "We're honestly as puzzled by this disappearance as everyone else. Our technology isn't advanced enough to make an entire fleet vanish, so we're hoping your investigation can provide some answers." The Scientists accepted the tablets and immediately noticed something unusual about their construction. While they appeared to be standard human technology, the materials felt different somehow, almost warm to the touch despite being inactive moments. Before, the weight distribution was also strange, as if the internal components were arranged in ways that didn't match typical human engineering principles. "Thank you, Dr. Thompson," Desus replied, trying to shake off his growing unease. "We'll begin our detailed analysis immediately. I assume we have permission to deploy our scanning arrays throughout the system." "Of course," Walker answered quickly. "Earth Defense has authorized complete access to any area you need to investigate. We want to get to the bottom of this mystery as much as you do." Over the following hours, investigation teams spread throughout the Sol system like a massive net, their advanced sensors probing every asteroid, every moon, every cubic meter of space where the Draconian fleet might have left some trace of their existence. Technology represented the combined scientific knowledge of dozens of civilizations, equipment capable of detecting the smallest particle emissions or energy signatures. Lieutenant Kex, Tice's primary aide and communications officer, coordinated the search efforts from the command center. His 4 arms moved rapidly across multiple control interfaces as data streamed in from teams positioned throughout the system. The readings were consistent and troubling in their uniformity. Sir Kex reported, his voice tight with frustration. "All teams are reporting the same results. No debris fields, no energy residue, no radiation signatures, no gravitational disturbances. It's as if the Draconian fleet never existed in this system." Thesis frowned as he studied the incoming reports on his personal display screen. The asteroid mining operations showed normal human activity, with workers extracting resources using standard techniques and equipment. The research stations orbiting Jupiter were conducting routine atmospheric studies and gravitational measurements. Everything appeared exactly as it should for a developing space civilization. "What about the outer system monitoring posts?" Thesis asked. "Any unusual readings from the area where the fleet supposedly disappeared?" "Negative, sir," Kex replied. "The space in question shows completely normal background radiation levels. No indication that hundreds of starships were ever present in that region." Captain Walker approached their workstation, carrying a steaming cup of what appeared to be human coffee. "Finding anything interesting, Commander? Our people are standing by to assist with anything you might need." There was something about Walker's tone that bothered Desus, though he couldn't identify exactly what it was. The human seemed genuinely helpful and concerned, but there was an underlying current of amusement in his voice, as if he found the entire investigation mildly entertaining rather than deeply serious. Captain Desus said carefully, "I have to ask about your crew's reaction to this situation. The Draconian Armada was less than 6 hours away from reaching Earth when they disappeared. Your planet was facing complete destruction, yet everyone I've met seems remarkably calm about the whole incident." Walker took a sip of his coffee and considered the question thoughtfully. "I suppose we are a bit different from most species in that regard. Humans have faced extinctionally threats before and survived them. We've learned that panic and fear don't solve problems, so we tend to focus on moving forward rather than dwelling on what might have been." Dr. Thompson joined the conversation, having overheard Tice's question. It's also worth noting that we never actually engaged the Draconian fleet in combat. From our perspective, they simply turned around and left before reaching our defensive perimeter. We're curious about why they departed so suddenly, but we're not going to complain about avoiding a war. But they didn't turn around, Thices protested. They vanished completely. No ship movements, no course changes, no communication indicating a withdrawal decision. One moment they were there, the next moment they weren't. Thompson and Walker exchanged a brief glance that Thices almost missed. Split-second communication that seemed to pass between them without words. When Thompson responded, her voice carried the same subtle amusement that characterized all their human interactions. "Well, Commander, that's why we're so grateful for your investigation. Clearly something happened that our sensors weren't sophisticated enough to detect. We're hoping your advanced technology can provide the answers that our equipment couldn't capture." As the investigation continued into the night cycle, Thices found himself growing increasingly uncomfortable with the human responses to their questions. Every answer was reasonable. Every explanation was logical. Yet something fundamental felt wrong about the entire situation. Lieutenant Kex approached him during a quiet moment, his expression troubled. "Sir, I've been monitoring human communications. Throughout the system, while we conduct our search, there's something odd about their behavioral patterns." "What do you mean?" Thices asked, grateful that someone else was noticing the inconsistencies he'd been sensing. "They're too relaxed," Kex explained quietly. "A civilization that just avoided total annihilation should be showing signs of relief, celebration, or at least residual fear. Instead, they're acting like this was just another day. It's almost as if they expected the Draconian fleet to disappear." Thices nodded slowly, his own suspicions crystallizing into a more concrete concern. "Keep monitoring their communications, but be discreet about it. And make sure our scanning teams document everything they find, no matter how insignificant it might seem." Something was definitely wrong in the Sol system, and Thices was beginning to suspect that the humans knew far more about the Draconian disappearance than they were admitting. Dr. Robert Hayes walked through the entrance airlock of Luna Base Alpha with confident steps, his magnetic boots clicking rhythmically against the metal flooring as he led the group of alien investigators deeper into the moon's surface facilities. The corridors stretched out before them like silver arteries, lined with observation windows that showed the endless black of space beyond. Human workers moved past them in both directions, carrying equipment and data tablets, nodding politely to their visitors before continuing with their tasks. "Welcome to our primary lunar operation," Hayes announced, his voice echoing slightly. "In the pressurized environment, we've been mining these tunnels for nearly 30 years now, extracting rare minerals and conducting various research projects. As you can see, it's all very routine work." Commander Thices followed closely behind, his scanning device held discreetly at his side as it continuously recorded energy readings and environmental data. The device had been specially modified to detect the kind of advanced technology that might explain the Draconian fleet's disappearance. But so far the readings showed nothing unusual about the facility. Investigator Krilth, whose species was known for their ability to detect minute changes in electromagnetic fields, walked alongside Thices with a growing expression of confusion on his scaled features. His internal sensors were picking up something that didn't match the simple mining operation they were being shown, but he couldn't identify exactly what was causing the discrepancy. Dr. Hayes Krilth said, stopping beside one of the observation windows. "Our equipment is detecting some unusual energy patterns coming from deeper within the moon. The signatures don't match typical mining or research activities." Hayes turned to face the investigator with the same friendly smile he had maintained throughout their tour. "Oh, you must be picking up readings from our deep excavation projects. We've been digging much further down than most lunar operations. Following some interesting geological formations we discovered during our initial surveys," the human gestured toward a sealed access door marked with various warning symbols and security codes. "Those lower levels are where we conduct our archaeological research. We've found some fascinating pre-human rock formations and mineral deposits that date back millions of years." very delicate work requires specialized equipment and safety protocols. Isis stepped closer to the sealed door, noting that his scanning device showed significantly higher energy readings coming from beyond the barrier. The patterns were unlike anything in his extensive database of known technologies, showing characteristics that seemed to bend the normal rules of physics in subtle but measurable ways. Archaeological research, Isis questioned, his tone becoming more serious. Commander Hayes, these energy readings suggest the presence of active technology, not passive geological formations. What exactly have you discovered down there? Before Hayes could respond, Dr. Patricia Morris appeared from a side corridor. Carrying a data tablet and wearing the standard white laboratory coat that seemed to be uniform among the lunar research staff, her timing seemed too convenient, as if she had been waiting nearby for the right moment to join the conversation. Dr. Hayes, are our guests interested in the deep excavations? Morris asked, her voice carrying the same casual tone that all the humans seem to use when discussing potentially significant discoveries. I was just reviewing some of our latest findings from the lower levels. Maurice turned to address the alien investigators directly, her expression showing genuine enthusiasm for her work. We've uncovered some really extraordinary geological layers down there. Mineral compositions that don't match anything else we've found on Luna, crystal formations that appear to be naturally occurring but show unusual symmetrical patterns. It's the kind of discovery that keeps researchers busy for decades. Krilth checked his scanner again, noting that the energy readings had actually increased since Morris joined their group. There was something about the human researchers themselves that was affecting his instruments, though he couldn't determine what was causing the interference. Dr. Morris Krilth said carefully, "These formations you've discovered, do they exhibit any unusual properties? Energy emissions, electromagnetic fields, anything that might explain the readings our equipment is detecting?" Maurice exchanged a brief glance with Hayes before responding, a micro-expression that lasted less than a second, but was noticed by Tice's trained eye. Well, some of the crystal formations do seem to have interesting optical properties. They reflect light in unusual ways. And we've measured some minor electromagnetic activity that we believe is related to their mineral composition. We'd like to examine these formations ourselves, Dices stated firmly. Our investigation requires that we explore all possible sources of unusual energy within the Sol system. If these archaeological finds are emitting the kinds of signatures our instruments are detecting, they could be relevant to our inquiry. Hayes's smile remained perfectly in place, but something changed in his eyes. A subtle shift that made them appear colder, despite the warm lighting of the corridor. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Commander. The lower excavation levels are currently unstable due to our ongoing digging operations. We've had several minor cave-ins recently. Our insurance protocols strictly prohibit unauthorized personnel from entering those areas. Unauthorized personnel? Thices repeated, his voice showing his growing frustration. We're conducting an official galactic investigation with full authority from the Council. Surely that provides sufficient authorization to examine any potentially relevant sites? Morris stepped forward, her expression showing what appeared to be genuine concern. Commander, I understand your position. We're talking about areas that are hundreds of meters below the surface, accessible only through narrow shafts and unstable tunnel systems. Even our own researchers require special safety equipment and extensive training before they're allowed to work down there. The liability issues alone would be enormous, Hayes added. If something happened to members of your investigation team in our facilities, the diplomatic complications would be severe. I'm sure you understand our position. Thesis studied both humans carefully, noting subtle details that hadn't been apparent during their initial meetings. Hayes moved with a fluidity that seemed unusual for someone working in lunar gravity, his steps too precise and controlled for normal human physiology. Maurice displayed similar characteristics, along with an alertness that suggested enhanced sensory capabilities. Perhaps you could provide us with detailed scans and samples from these archaeological sites, Krilth suggested. That would allow us to analyze the materials without requiring direct access to the unstable areas. Of course, Morris replied quickly. We can prepare comprehensive data packages with all of our geological surveys, mineral analysis reports, and photographic documentation. It will take some time to compile everything, but we'll have it ready for you within a few days. As they continued walking through the facility, Thesis became increasingly aware that something fundamental was wrong with the entire situation. The energy readings from the lower levels suggested the presence of technology far more advanced than anything humans should possess. Yet Hayes and Morris dismissed these discoveries as simple geological curiosities. The investigation team spent several more hours touring the visible portions of the lunar facility, examining mining equipment and research laboratories that all appeared completely normal. However, every attempt to gain access to the deeper levels was met with polite but firm refusal, always accompanied by reasonable explanations about safety concerns and liability issues. When they finally returned to their transport vessel, Krilth immediately began analyzing the data his instruments had collected during the visit. The energy signatures from the restricted areas showed patterns that defied conventional understanding of physics, suggesting the presence of technology that operated on principles unknown to galactic science. Commander Krilth reported quietly, "Whatever the humans have discovered in those lower levels, it's not just archaeological artifacts. The energy patterns indicate active systems that are currently operational and drawing significant power. From unknown sources?" Thesis nodded grimly as he reviewed his own recordings of the visit. The humans had been helpful and accommodating on the surface, but their careful control of information and restricted access suggested they were hiding something much more significant than simple mining operations: the trail of the missing Draconian. Fleet was growing colder with each passing hour. But deep beneath Luna's surface, something ancient and powerful was stirring in response to their investigation. The damaged escape pod tumbled slowly through the darkness of space, its metal hull twisted and scorched from whatever force had torn it away from the Draconian flagship. Captain Walker's recovery team spotted the small craft during their routine patrol of the outer system, its emergency beacon broadcasting weekly on standard distress frequencies. The pod appeared to have been drifting for at least 2 days, its life support systems running on emergency power and showing critical failure warnings. Across multiple displays, Walker stood on the bridge of his vessel as the recovery operation began, watching through the main viewing screen as his crew carefully maneuvered the damaged pod into their cargo bay. The pod's exterior showed signs of extreme stress, with metal that appeared to have been twisted by forces that defied normal physics. Strange burn patterns covered the hull, creating designs that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Davis from the sensor station, "we're detecting one life sign inside the pod, but the readings are very weak. Whatever happened to this craft, the occupant is in critical condition." Dr. Amanda Foster hurried toward the cargo bay, her medical equipment already prepared for emergency treatment. As the chief medical officer aboard Walker's ship, she had dealt with injured aliens before. But something about this particular rescue mission felt different. The energy readings from the escape pod showed patterns that didn't match any known Draconian technology, suggesting that whatever had damaged the craft was far beyond conventional weapons. The cargo bay doors sealed shut as the escape pod was brought inside, and Foster's medical team immediately began working to open the damaged hatch. The metal had been fused in several places, requiring careful cutting with plasma torches to avoid injuring whoever was trapped inside. When they finally breached the pod's hull, a wave of strange energy washed over the recovery team, causing their instruments to flicker and display impossible readings. Inside the pod, they found a single Draconian warrior, his reptilian body badly injured, and his breathing shallow and irregular. The alien's scales had turned a sickly gray color, and his eyes showed signs of severe neurological trauma. Foster immediately activated her portable medical scanner, but the device began displaying readings that made no sense according to any known biology. "Get him to the medical bay immediately," Foster ordered, her voice tight with concern. "His neural patterns are completely scrambled, and I'm reading cellular damage that shouldn't be survivable." Commander Thesis arrived in the medical bay just as Foster's team finished connecting the Draconian to life support systems. Through the transparent viewing window, he could see the alien warrior lying motionless on the treatment table. his chest rising and falling in an irregular rhythm that suggested his body was fighting some kind of internal battle. "How is he, doctor?" Dices asked, studying the various monitors that displayed the patient's vital signs and scrolling lines of data. Foster shook her head, her expression troubled as she reviewed the scanner readings. "His physiology has been altered at the cellular level. I'm detecting changes to his DNA structure that appear to be recent, as if something rewrote his genetic code while he was still alive. The neural damage is even more concerning. There are areas of his brain that show activity patterns I've never seen before." The Draconian's eyes suddenly opened, their normal golden color replaced by a swirling mixture of colors that seemed to contain depths that extended far beyond the physical structure of his skull. His mouth opened and closed several times before any sound emerged. And when he finally spoke, his voice carried an echo that seemed to come from somewhere far away. "The deep ones," he whispered, his words barely audible through the medical bays. "Speakers. They came from Luna's heart, rising from places that should not exist. Walking in the vacuum of space without protective suits, moving between the stars like shadows cast by no light." Foster leaned closer to the treatment table, her medical scanner showing impossible spikes in the warrior's brain activity. "What attacked your fleet? Can you describe the weapons they used against you?" The Draconian's head turned toward her, his altered eyes focusing with difficulty on her face. "No weapons," he gasped, his breathing becoming more labored with each word. "No ships. No technology that we could understand or fight against. They simply approached our vessels and reality began to bend around them." Dices moved closer to the viewing window, his own recording devices capturing every word of the warrior's testimony. "What do you mean by reality bending? That's not possible according to any known science." "Our dreadnought Tyrannos, the Draconian," continued, his voice growing weaker, "the most powerful warship in our fleet, armed with weapons that could destroy planets. They touched it with their minds, and it began to fold in on itself. Not exploding, not breaking apart, but folding like a piece of paper being crumpled by invisible hands." The alien warrior's body convulsed suddenly, his back arching as some kind of energy surge passed through his nervous system. The medical monitors attached to his body began displaying readings that fluctuated wildly, showing patterns that Foster had never encountered in decades of treating various alien species. The beings that did this, Dices pressed, were they human? The Draconian's laughter was a sound of madness and terror combined. Humans, but not humans, changed, evolved, merged with something that existed before our galaxy was young. They spoke to us without using words, touched our minds with theirs, showed us things that no living creature should ever see. Foster's scanner began emitting warning sounds as the warrior's vital signs became increasingly unstable. His cellular structure was breaking down at an accelerating rate, as if whatever had changed him was also slowly destroying him from within. "They said we were trespassing," the Draconian whispered, his voice now so quiet that the medical bay's audio systems had to amplify it for them to hear. "Trespassing in their garden. They showed us the depths beneath Luna's surface. Cities that were ancient when our civilization was nothing but primitive tribes fighting over scraps of food." "What kind of cities?" Dices demanded, sensing that this testimony might be the key to understanding the entire mystery. "What did you see down there?" The warrior's eyes rolled back, showing only the whites as his body entered its final stages of collapse. "Technology that predates every empire in the galaxy. Machines that think and dream and reshape reality according to their will. The kind of power that made the old ones masters of space and time itself." Dr. Foster worked frantically to stabilize her patient, but her instruments showed that his life signs were fading rapidly. "Doctor, what happened to the old ones? Where did they go?" With tremendous effort, the Draconian focused his dying gaze on Foster's face, and for a moment his altered eyes seemed to see directly into her soul. "They didn't go anywhere," he whispered with his final breath. "It became something else, something that waits in the deep places, learning and growing and preparing. And now their power serves humanity." As the warrior's body went still, the medical monitors flatlined with the steady tone that indicated death. Foster stood motionless beside the treatment table, her face pale as she processed the implications of what they had just heard. Visis noticed something strange in the reflection of the medical bay's polished metal surfaces. For just a moment, Dr. Foster's eyes seemed to glow with the same inner light they had seen in the dying Draconian's gaze, a luminescence that suggested she was no longer entirely human either. The investigation had found its first real evidence, but the truth was far more terrifying than anyone had imagined. Admiral Marcus Reed walked through the massive chamber buried deep beneath Luna's surface, his footsteps echoing strangely in the vast space that seemed to exist outside the normal rules of physics. The walls around him were covered with crystalline structures that pulsed with colors that had no names in any human language, their surfaces reflecting light that came from no visible source. Ancient machinery hummed with power that had been dormant for millions of years before humanity discovered these hidden depths. The chamber itself defied three-dimensional geometry, with corridors that led in directions that shouldn't exist and surfaces that curved back on themselves in impossible ways. Reed moved through this alien environment with practiced ease. His body adapted to the reality-warping effects that would have driven most beings insane within minutes of exposure. Dr. Amanda Foster appeared beside him, her form shimmering slightly as the chamber's energy fields interacted with her enhanced physiology. The transformation process had affected her more gradually than others, allowing her to maintain more of her original human appearance while gaining abilities that transcended normal biological limitations. The investigation team is preparing to leave the system, Foster reported, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated with the chamber's crystalline walls. Commander Thesis has sent his final report to the Galactic Council, recommending immediate reclassification of Sol System as a hazard zone. Reed nodded slowly, his eyes reflecting the alien light in ways that revealed how completely his transformation had progressed. Unlike Foster, his change had been more dramatic, incorporating neural pathways that connected directly to the ancient systems they had discovered. His consciousness now existed partially within the vast network of machines that had once served the galaxy's first civilization. The investigation went exactly as we expected, Reed replied, his words carrying an undertone of satisfaction. They found enough evidence to confirm their worst fears, but not enough to understand the true scope of what we've become. During humanity's first serious exploration of Luna's interior, the mining teams had discovered caverns that contained technology beyond their wildest imagination. Where other species would have fled in terror from such alien artifacts, humans had done what they always did when confronted with dangerous unknowns. So they studied the technology, learned how it worked, and ultimately made it part of themselves. Dr. Robert Hayes materialized from a side passage, his physical form more fluid, then solid as his consciousness moved freely between his biological body and the neural networks that connected him to the ancient machinery. The integration process had taken years to complete, but the results had exceeded every expectation. The Galactic Council will certainly mark us as an existential threat now, Hayes observed, his voice seeming to come from multiple directions. At once, fear of the unknown has always been their primary response to anything they can't understand or control, Reed smiled, an expression that no longer looked entirely human due to the subtle changes in his facial structure. Fear will serve our purposes perfectly. It will keep them away from our system while we complete the integration process and expand our capabilities. In the center of the vast chamber, a holographic display activated, showing images that would have horrified any member of the investigation team if they had been able to witness them. The Draconian fleet appeared in perfect detail, but they were not destroyed as the galaxy believed. Instead, they had been transported to a pocket dimension where space and time operated according to different rules. The Draconian ships and their crews remained intact, but existed in a state of suspended animation. While serving as test subjects for humanity's continuing evolution, the ancient technology allowed for experimentation that would have been impossible in normal space, providing insights into alien biology and psychology that were helping humans adapt to their new role as inheritors of the old one's legacy. The displacement field worked perfectly, Foster commented as she studied the holographic data. The entire fleet was moved to the pocket dimension without any loss of structural integrity. We now have access to complete examples of their technology. In biological systems, the old ones had been the galaxy's first truly advanced civilization, developing technology that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. They had transcended physical existence millions of years ago, leaving behind only their machines and the vast underground cities they had built on worlds throughout the galaxy. When humans discovered the lunar installation, they found technology that was still active and waiting for someone capable of understanding its purpose. The machines had been designed to merge with suitable biological entities, creating hybrid beings that could operate the ancient systems while maintaining enough organic flexibility to continue evolving. Dr. Patricia Morris appeared beside the holographic display, her form flickering between her original human appearance and something far more complex. The transformation had affected her differently than the others, allowing her consciousness to exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions while maintaining her ability to interact with normal three-dimensional space. The deep excavations on Mars and Europa are producing remarkable results, Maurice reported, her voice carrying information on multiple levels that only her enhanced colleagues could fully understand. We've discovered additional cities with technology that complements what we found here on Luna. The Mars installation contained manufacturing systems that could create materials with properties that violated normal physics, while the Europa facility housed computational networks, capable of processing information at speeds that approached the theoretical limits of reality itself. Each discovery added new capabilities to humanity's growing arsenal of impossible technologies. How long before the integration process is complete? Reed asked, his consciousness already accessing data from the other installations through the neural networks that connected all the ancient sites. The current projections suggest another 5 to 10 years for full integration, Hayes replied, his awareness spanning multiple dimensions as he consulted with machine intelligences that had been calculating possibilities for millions of years. After that, we'll be ready to reveal ourselves fully to the galaxy. Reed moved to another section of the chamber where additional displays showed the current status of Earth and its surrounding space. From the outside, everything appeared completely normal, with human ships conducting routine patrols and civilian traffic moving between the various colonies and mining operations. Let the galaxy fear us for now, Reed said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who spoke with the backing of technology that could reshape reality itself. When we're ready to emerge fully, they'll understand that resistance is not just futile, but completely pointless. Above them, far from the hidden depths where humanity's true transformation was taking place, Earth continued its peaceful rotation. Around the sun, Hume cities broadcast their normal radio and television signals into space, maintaining the illusion of a young civilization that posed no threat to anyone. But in the deep places beneath Luna, Mars and Europa, something ancient and patient was stirring. The Old One's legacy lived on through their human inheritors, who had taken the galaxy's most dangerous secrets and made them part of their own evolution. The investigation was over, but the real story of humanity's transformation was just beginning. Soon, the galaxy would learn what it meant to face a species that had embraced the very forces that other civilizations feared most, and resistance would indeed prove to be inadvisable.